human beings, we have a tendency to have reassurance, especially when it comes to our children. We're going to put our kids in a school, we do a lot of investigating. But at the end of the day, the reality is that Allah Azza wa Jal did not give us assurances of the future in this life at all. We have to do the best we can, and at the end of the day, every step we take is an act of tawakkul in Allah. It is an act of reliance in Allah. Because you can have the best plan in the world, and things will not work out anywhere near what you thought. And you can have no plan at all and everything will get straightened out. That can happen, and it certainly does happen. So you have many instances in the Quran, in the prophetic narrative as well, where things are not, they don't look like they're going to work out at all. Like Musa alayhi salam being thrown in a basket. That doesn't look like much of a plan. But that is actually the means by which an empire is destroyed. You know, the empire of Fir'aun and the oppression of Fir'aun against countless people came to an end because a baby was thrown in a basket. So Allah has His own way of making things work out. On the negative side also, there are people, for example, people ask all the time, people are worried about their kids. Parents are constantly concerned, how do I give my children a proper education? I want to make sure they're good Muslims. I want to make sure that I don't have to worry about their deen, things like that. And you hear enough horror stories and enough lectures to be terrified of this scenario, you know, and then there are people you know, oh, I don't want my kids to be like, you know, Zubair Saab's children. That's really, you know, like, so there's enough of those conversations you have over Eid, and, you know, it's great. The thing I want to share with you is, on the one hand, you have, you know, situations where children are raised with the best of character without even a parental figure, like the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. Right? He's kidnapped as a child, so there is no father or mother figure really for him to look up to. So the remnants and the memory of a father giving him certain lessons when he was a kid are the ones that he's holding on to even in his teenage years. Can you imagine the last Islamic lesson he received, the last dars he received, the last bit of advice he received when he was a kid is now coming back, and he's utilizing it when he's in a closed room with a woman trying to seduce him. And he remembers that lesson. So, you know, and it's not like he's receiving a regular Islamic education. That's not the case. That's certainly not the case. Because the story reveals that, you know, the one that was raising him, the Aziz, doesn't have the most ethical character either. There's a few gaps in his character that the story demonstrates. And obviously the lady is like super evil. So there's, I mean, where's he going to get this guidance from? But it's the initial part of Surah Yusuf, you know, demonstrates that this father did have direct engagement with the child, and it had such long-lasting effects. So one of the lessons that we derive from Surah Yusuf, for instance, especially as parents, is that we cannot underestimate the value of early education. And not just, and I don't mean education as in memorize this surah, learn these du'as, know how to make wudu. That's what we've turned education into. Education for us is informative in nature. It is not transformative, you know. So in the previous talk you heard repeatedly this idea of having our children internalize the deen. And so that's something that we're going to talk about in a little bit, inshallah ta'ala. But that's the first, you know, reality that I wanted to remind myself of. I do not control the guidance of my children, and you do not control the guidance of your children. As a matter of fact, we don't even have any control of the guidance of our own selves. So the fact that you're sitting here is, you know, blessing that we're sitting in a gathering of Muslims trying to learn something about the deen of Allah, but this is not because you had a super righteous upbringing. There are plenty of you sitting in the audience right now that are parents themselves that have made some pretty big mistakes in your lives. And if you look back, there wasn't like a set formula that ensured that you will receive guidance from Allah Azza wa Jal, that you followed and that therefore you have guidance. It is actually a gift of Allah that all of us have to acknowledge came to us from Allah Azza wa Jal. But regardless of that, we have to make some efforts on our part.